You are making the world a better place by listening to the Joy of Living podcast. This is your guide to achieving a more purposeful, powerful, and positive life. Join Barry Shore in unlocking the best version of you and becoming happier, healthier, and wealthier. And now, here's your ambassador of joy, Barry Shore.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. You're good-looking. You're always looking for and finding the good. Welcome to the Joy of Living podcast with your humble host, Barry Shore. And we are blessed, honored that you're here today, you, specifically you, because you tuned in for one reason and one reason only. And by the way, it's the best reason of all. You care the most in the entire world about you, Y-O-U. And that's wonderful, because when you become the best you make the world a better place. You build more bridges of harmony. You create more joy, happiness, peace, and love in the world. I want to mention to you that you're also joined at this very moment by approximately 348,613 people around the world. Each one tuned in to become the best version of themselves. So together we can make a difference in the world. And you know that on this show, we discuss the three fundamentals of life. And these three fundamentals will enable you to be happier, healthier, and wealthier. Who doesn't want that? And you're going to be amazed at what you're going to be given today. Transformative information that should rock your world, shake you up, and enable you to shift your perspective. Wait till you hear from our amazing Laura Rosen. But right now, we'll talk about the three fundamentals. They are, number one, your life has purpose. And when you lead a purpose-driven life, number two happens. Now, in this case, a good number two, you go mad. MAD is a wonderful acronym that stands for make a difference. You lead a purpose-driven life, you make a difference in the world. And the third is to uncover the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms. Simple example, if you ask anybody, what does www stand for? Invariably, it has to do with the internet. And factually speaking, they're correct. But in our world, the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, www stands for what a wonderful world. And what is a word, right? W-H-A-T-A. And whenever you hear the opening bars of that amazing song, What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong, Satchmo, and it's gone viral around the world, right? And it's not just touched tens of millions or hundreds of millions, but billions of people around the planet hear, what a wonderful world. What do you do right away when you hear the opening bars? You smile, you can't help it. Now, smile is one of the most important words you're going to internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life, because SMILE is a great acronym that stands for seeing miracles in life every day. Seeing miracles in life every day. Now, I got to tell you, thank God we're talking to people again. I did a very big seminar recently, no mask, lots of hugging, and we had 1,176 people there. And I'm talking about the story of Barry Shore. I'm talking about SMILE, seeing miracles in life every day. And some people raise their hands and say, hey, Barry Shore, I've been up for hours, I haven't seen any miracles. And I asked them, are you here? Can you hear? Can you stand still? I can't do that. Can you walk? I can barely do that. You have water, drink, food to eat, a place to sleep, family, friends. Every single one of those is a miracle. What's the proof? Simple proof. 1 million people didn't get out of bed this morning. You know why? They died. Now, if you're watching or you're listening, by definition, you didn't, you're alive. Therefore, you have an obligation to live life to the full. And that's why we're here today, to be able to become the best you possible. So just a simple story. Imagine, if you can, standing up in the morning, hale and hearty, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, and that evening being in the hospital, totally, completely paralyzed from the neck down, called a quadriplegic. That's me. Not an automobile accident, not a spinal injury, a rare disease which I never heard of the day before took over my body and rendered me completely paralyzed. I could only communicate by blinking my eyes. I was 144 days in the hospital. I was 2 years in a hospital bed in my own home. I couldn't turn over by myself. 4 years in a wheelchair. I had braces on both my legs, from my hips to my ankles, and that was progress. Thank God today I'm able to be vertical and ambulatory with the help of a 7-foot walking wand. So I'm a triped, not a biped. I still can't walk up a stair by myself. I can't walk up a curb by myself. And I've helped 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But you hear my voice. Positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant. It's all because there's one word. Smile. Seeing miracles in life every day. Like I tell you quickly, a few weeks ago, my 8-year-old niece comes over to me. She says, Uncle Barry, can we spell smile S-M-I-E-L? I thought about it. Smile, sounds the same. Why not? I asked her, how come? She says, because then it would stand for seeing miracles in everyday life. Out of the mouth of babes, an 8-year-old. But what was she doing? She was creating the kind of world she wants to live in. Now, CREATE is a fabulous acronym that stands for causing rethinking, enabling all to excel. It's your thoughts that make a difference. So I'm going to give you the 6 most important words that you could have internalized, utilize, and leverage in your life that will make a difference for you and therefore your family, friends, and all living beings. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Now, before we bring on amazing Laura, I want to warn everybody, including her, that I do use a lot of 4-letter words. I even use the 4-letter FU word. I do it because of the shock value, and it's fun. Now, the 4-letter words that we use, of course, because we live in the world of positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, are love, life, hope, free, gift, grow, play, pray, swim. And the FU word, the 4-letter FU word is fun. Fun, yes, FU, capital N. So after the show, you see family, friends, I want you to point your finger and tell everybody FU, capital N, capital M. You got to add the double N's afterwards. They'll say, what are you talking about? Where'd you get that? I said, I listen to Barry Shore on the Joy of Living podcast. He wants to teach the world to FU, capital N, capital N. Now, I know there are some purists out there who say, hey, Barry Shore, fun's only spelled with 3 letters. Not in our world. In the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, spelled FU, capital N, capital N. So right before we bring on Laura, I just want to urge everybody. And again, I am deeply humbled and honored that you usually have anywhere from 325, 330,000 people, and you're always urging your family and friends to come and listen. So by the time we bring on Laura in the next minute or so, we'll have over 360,000 people. And then I'm going to urge you to share this with 5 people so that 1.5 million people around the world will be touched by what Laura Rosen Cohen is going to share with us today. It's amazing. It's wonderful. And anything you want to know about her, by the way, don't have to write anything down. Just lean in and listen and be transformed. Just go to my website, www.whatawonderfulworld.barryshore.com, and everything about Laura will be there. So before we do that, I want you to use the 2 most powerful words in the English language 3 times a day from now and the rest of your life. And these 2 words are thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and network kindness. To harmonize and network kindness. The Dalai Lama has been quoted saying, I read in his writings, be kind whenever possible. He says, it's always possible. So imagine you go to your coffee shop, you order your fancy latte, you sit down, somebody brings it to you, say thank you. You order your fancy latte in the coffee shop, and a couple of minutes go by, nobody brings it. You go to the counter and say, oh, I'm sorry, we forgot, we're busy. You sit down, a minute goes by, you still say thank you. You're walking out of the coffee shop, it's raining out, somebody holds the door open for you. You say thank you. You're walking out of the coffee shop, and it's raining, and somebody slams the door on you. You say thank you. You're in traffic, you're late for the place, somebody cuts you off. You say thank you. You get up in the middle of the night and you stub your toe and it hurts. You say, yes, thank you. To harmonize and network kindness. Kind is a fabulous word. It stands for keep inspiring noble deeds. I can't think of anybody that inspires noble deeds more than wonderful Laura Rosen Cohen. Laura, please say hello to 362,819 people around the world.
Hi there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
She seems to be understated, but she's not. One of the reasons I urged and pleaded and begged to have Laura on is because she is a 21st century muckraker. Yes, she finds stuff that other people miss because, hey, people lead busy lives, but she uses her time to go and find those things that touch the very human spirit. And we're going to talk about stuff today. We're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about death. We're going to talk about the hatred of Jews, because it's a terrible disease that ruins the world. And we're going to talk about motherhood and dealing with difficulties in families, because people have stuff. Everybody has stuff. She has big stuff. So we're going to talk about all of that. So Laura, let's just jump right in and give people a little bit about your human background, so we have context. And then I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm just going to go right to it.
Okay. Well, basically, I'm a Jewish mother from Toronto, Canada. I've been writing for a long time. I consider myself primarily a writer, but I do some editing as well. And you can find me Newsweek magazine, the Jerusalem Post, mostly on Twitter in terms of social media. And I have a weekly column that I write for the great Mark Stein, who's one of my favorite humans on the planet. And it's a weekly digest called Laura's Links that I put together, which kind of gives an overview of things that are percolating through the internet. And I usually have a little bit of commentary before, and then I basically am saving people the trouble of having to wade through all the muck of the internet on their own. And I try to find stories that point to trends, societal, cultural, and give my own little spin on it. So you can find me weekly at Mark Stein's website, which is steinonline.com.
Let me unpack that a little bit and just emphasize
Yep.
again. You don't have to write anything down, everybody. Everything about Laura and Mark Stein and such is going to be at my website, barryshaw.com. So just listen. But if you haven't ever heard of the name Mark Stein, and it's spelled Steyn, well, you're in for a surprise, a shock, an uplift, insight. But the reason I wanted Laura on is because she has that unique column, Laura's Links. And if you don't get it, you're missing out, because the world, as she said, stuff is percolating through, and it's important to be aware. That's really why Laura's here. She raises awareness. So I'm going to jump right in, and we're going to talk first, before we talk about life, we're going to talk about death.
Okay.
People, for some reason, shy away from death. And hey, why not? Even though it's inevitable, like taxes. But why do people shy away from death? Because who wants to talk about their own mortality? Well, I am bringing this up because not only is Laura Canadian born, she lives in Canada, in Toronto, as she said. Canada, again, from a perspective of somebody born in the United States of America, who traveled the world, who was with many Canadians during the late 60s, early 70s, when I was living in Europe as a hippie. Canadians had a certain vibe, a certain peacefulness. And I see that has changed dramatically over the decades. And one of the issues that I want you to tackle, if you'd be so kind, is this bizarre law that is now enabling, sometimes even encouraging, suicide.
Right. So what you're referring to, for those who don't know, is that the Canadian government has a federal program. It's called MAID, MAID, Medical Assistance in Dying. Basically, it's what we would otherwise call democide, or state murder of citizens. And the government has made it extremely easy and is encouraging people, to take them up on the offer of medical assistance in dying. It's absolutely horrifying how quick the process is for people. It was meant to, in the beginning, the brilliant idea was that it was for people who were, terminally ill, in unbearable pain, with no possible ability to recover. I mean, we can talk about end of life care, as parenthetically. So, you want to be graceful and merciful at the end of somebody's life. If they're suffering from pain from a terrible terminal disease, you want to make sure that you have merciful, graceful care and ease their pain. This is something really quite different, and it's becoming very available. The criteria have changed. There's very little in terms of waiting times. It's not even necessarily doctors who are signing off on this. It's through phone calls. It can be, as far as I know, it can be pharmacists or nursing assistants. It doesn't have to be a very thorough process at all. You do the paperwork, and then you get this death day, and you get the drugs, and it's billable to our insurance scheme, our socialized medical scheme. And it's really anti-human. It's really horrible. There's been stories where people have applied for this because they're depressed or impoverished, again, without their parents knowing, even if they are an adult. Um, it's really horrifying. It's really become a culture of death. It's just an awful, awful thing. And on a Machiavellian level, it seems like it's being done because it's actually a savings for the government. If you don't have tens of thousands of critically ill people or depressed people that you have an obligation to, according to the law, you're supposed to treat these people. We're all supposed to be entitled to the same medical care, to the same services. It's actually cheaper to have them take
Right.
this medically assisted euthanasia rather than deal with their problems.
So let
Um,
me put you on pause for a moment because I
yeah,
want to back. I mean, I've read about it and I studied it because of you.
right.
I hope that people right now are leaning in and their eyes are bugging out and they're in shock because we're not talking about a dictatorship. We're
No,
not talking about an oppressive regime. We're
no.
talking about the
Well,
government of Canada, which on the surface is one of the more enlightened places on the earth.
so the thing is that Canada did actually decline in terms of freedoms and liberties, especially noteworthy during the COVID tyranny. And our prime minister, Justin Trudeau, is on record as admiring China's basic dictatorship. So he has a very high admiration for totalitarianism, for the Chinese communist regime. And, we have seen that reflected in a lot of the policies that have been enacted in Canada. When people started rebelling, the truckers here in Canada started rebelling against the COVID tyranny on behalf of all of Canadians. Trudeau wanted to crush it mercilessly. They froze the bank accounts of people, making them unable to buy food and prescriptions. This is really dark stuff. So Canada, on paper, is a democracy. Trudeau hasn't had a minority government until he was bolstered by our far left party, the NDP. But a lot of Canadians, I think, have been lulled into a false sense of security because of all the free things that we get in our system. But there's a cost for free. Free is not really free. Somebody's always going to be paying the bill. And I think people have been slowly, it's like a slow drip of anesthetic. And then you take the free this, you take the free that, but you're essentially selling your soul. And particularly in a socialized medical system, you're not making your own independent decisions for yourself or your family. You are at the mercy of government bureaucrats or people who think they know better. That is not to say that there aren't excellent physicians here and nurses and excellent hospitals. There are. It's just that the system itself is rife with, bloated bureaucracies.
So
And
let me put you on pause for a moment.
yeah,
Laura is articulate, capable, informative, and what she does in verbal right now, you need to see it in her links, in her writing, because if it doesn't scare you, it should. And what I want to talk about is this amazing book that was published more than half a century ago, The Road to Serfdom.
right.
And by the fellow, again, you'll see all this in the show notes. Go to barryshore.com. But what Laura is discussing is exactly what was talked about, because this is the issue of socialism
Right.
leading even to communism. But leave aside communism, just talking about the idea of socialism, which seems soft and gentle and loving. And yet, as you said so wonderfully, it's caused the COVID tyranny, which was a dry run for real tyranny,
Sure.
and the ability to misunderstand the cost of free. I'm just using your words.
Yeah.
And in America, we use the analogy of a frog in some water, let's say a pot of water, and you start boiling it. And okay, the frog is in warm water. So you keep
Right.
turning up the heat, you turn up the heat until suddenly the frog is boiling and can't get out, and then it's being eaten.
Right.
That's what's happened to the population of this amazing, great country called Canada, which
Yeah.
is how I say in quotation ruled, I'm using those terms, ruled by a minority party, minority, as you said, that uses the levers of free to keep people embraced and therefore unable or lulled into a sense of, well, it's okay. What, and by the way, what can we do about it? So
Right.
is there an emerging uprising in any kind of way of, forget the word conservative, of people in Canada that recognize that this is not the best way to live? Is that happening at all?
Um, well, yes, I think the evidence of that is obviously the trucker demonstration, which inspired a lot of other similar demonstrations throughout the world, because Canada was certainly not the only place where there was COVID tyranny. I mean, the United States of America had pockets in, blue states where it was very similar. And still to this day, I think that there are places that are, trying to mandate vaccines still on children and all this other nightmarish stuff. So I would say that there's provinces in Canada also where there's a little bit more of an inclination to freedom. Like in Alberta, they replaced the premier that presided over the COVID years. And although he was allegedly a conservative, he did a lot of not conservative and sort of antithetical to freedom things. Now they have somebody there who is much more freedom inclined, who one of her first moves was to make an apology for certain policies, very sort of enlightened. But the general population, Canada's demographics have really changed a lot over the years too. And Canada, we have had a lot of immigration from third world countries, from places where they don't have a long-standing tradition of democracy. So that changes. Demographics are destiny. So that Canada has changed, and similar to the flooding of America with illegal immigrants, undocumented, et cetera, it changes states. So you can flip a state from being from blue to red, red to blue, depending on who's there and who's moving there. So I think that a lot of people in Canada realize there's something wrong,
Let
but
me
yeah,
pause for a moment because, again, you're giving information that you and I share, but I want to make sure that we have a very broad worldwide audience.
right.
And what you said about demographics create destiny, this is not random stuff.
No.
The fact that there are people coming in are being brought in,
Yes.
encouraged to come in to shift the balance because they don't have. It's not that these people are bad, not that these people are stupid. They're not in any way.
I
They
don't
are
know.
ignorant. Now, ignorance is merely not understanding or not knowing what's going on. But if you don't have a history, and in this case, a long-standing history of participating democracy and the empowerment of people. If you come from a place where people were never empowered, you were never empowered, and now you're given a lot of what we call free things,
Yes.
well, by definition, you're going to be subservient because you don't know anything else.
Yeah, it creates probably not healthy habits. And it's just we have to really consider what we want our countries to look like. And it's not a matter of it's nothing against particular nationalities or religions or colors or orientations of any kind. It's just when you come to a new country, do you subscribe to the values of that country or not? Are you going to try to create an enclave of other country rules and regulations within your new country or not? And I just as an example, in some cultures, sex selection abortion is considered very okay. Like, a pregnant woman in a culture where it is more desirable to have a male child, it will encourage the aborting of a female child at an early stage when it's detectable. Now, that's not really a Canadian tradition, but we have populations where it's okay by them, and they've set up that um, a system, within Canada to do that. So the problem really is that people don't want to discuss it. They don't want to discuss it and say like, "Hey, that's not a tradition that we really want to start here." Um, or similarly, we've had cases in Canada where there have been honor murders of Muslim
Just,
teenagers.
just put plain, honor murders is an oxymoron.
Obviously, but they're in some groups of Muslim culture, if the female decides to not wear a hijab or to incorporate more Western practices in her life or wants to date a non-Muslim boy, it's a very big form of rebellion, and there have been murders of um, Muslim teenagers and women here for those reasons. There's been some really nightmarish cases, and we have to be able to discuss that. So the problem is not just what we're seeing in front of us in terms of demographic changes that are irreversible, really, in many ways. Um, and what we're seeing also is cultural practices that just do not conform with, a Judeo-Christian way of living. That, and by that we're talking about civilization. That is what is civilized. So do we want to import those kind of practices? We still have to be able to talk about it. What's happening now, and what we see reflected also in the convergence of big tech and governments, left wing governments in particular, is that they want to keep doing what they're doing with zero accountability, with zero plan for how we're going to pay for all of this stuff, and with zero discussion. You're not allowed to talk about it. And big tech, all the social media um, companies, have colluded with government to quash free speech. We're just starting to see some of the actual information drip out now because Elon Musk has purchased Twitter. So we're going to get more information. Whether there's going to be accountability is a completely separate issue.
Right. So this is, I mean, you're giving us so much. Again, I just first of all want to say thank you again to you for making the time to be here and to
No
share.
problem.
But I want to use a couple of points that you've raised here. Not healthy habits. I like that. That was a gentle way of saying for people who just they don't know, and they're not schooled anymore as they used to be, let's say half a century ago when immigrants came to a country, let's say a democracy. They're
Right.
not schooled in democratic values,
Right.
Judeo-Christian values, which give responsibility to people. I think
Yes,
the overriding word here is personal responsibility. When
absolutely.
you remove that from people as an obligation, that is an opportunity, well, then of course people will just entropy happens.
It's a matter of personal responsibility. That's obviously primary in the cultural background. But what is parallel to that means also appreciating the sanctity of the individual and the sanctity of human life. So these declines are happening in tandem. You have people who are delegating their personal responsibility to be the responsibility of the state, and the state is happy to pick up the slack in return for your soul. It's a very good bargain for them. They will control you. And then at the same time, we're seeing, just like with this medically assisted state-sponsored suicide program, that we're not valuing individual human life. And I think that that's whenever I talk to people, of different cultures and religions, I feel like saying that could be the point where we sort of reconvene and try to start working together. Like, I'm really bored of all these other, intercultural, cross-cultural. It's To me, it's very boring. To me, what the important thing is like, hey, you might be Catholic, you might be Hindu, you might be Muslim. Can we at least agree that human life is sacred? I'm willing to talk to anybody. I'm willing to be your partner in a discussion if we agree that every life is sacred, and that we are created in the shadow of God. We all our human life is like this miraculous creation. Um,
Are you getting agreement at least on that?
well, if you're talking to people who are on my side already, then it's not a hard sell. It's
Well,
like,
wait,
yeah,
this
of course.
is
But
about
like, how
the
do
other
you
political spectrum. Are you getting agreement that the sanctity of the individual life is in fact that sacred?
so Not really. I think it's really hard. I think that people, like for myself, to have discussion with somebody who's like on the hard left, you're like from another planet. It's very difficult. But having said that, a lot of women, mothers in particular, I would say over the COVID years, when they saw what was being done to their children and the school closures, and particularly rules and regulations that severely harmed disabled children, and the antipathy towards mothers who were really just trying to get the best for their children. I think that some people shifted from being like traditional left to like more in the center, and realizing that it was actually people on the conservative side of things who were trying to protect children, trying to defend individual. So I think that's something that I saw. I know a lot of people like on social media who were pretty left and then through COVID became kind of politically homeless, i.e., they kind of shifted away from their traditional
This is
demographic group.
wonderful. Word shift.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been working with, thank God, many thousands of people over the decades, and urging people to shift perspective. And
yeah,
I'm telling you, Laura, 97.2% of all people, for some reason, drop the F and shift, and the other stuff happens.
right,
F
right.
and care about your S. But we're going to take a break right now. Not take. We are happy to tell you we have sponsors that love the show. We urge you to use their products, their services, because they're wonderful. And we'll be right back in a couple of minutes with this amazing, insightful Laura Rosen Cohen. And we're going to shift a little bit from death into life and then into anti-Semitism. Oh my gosh. We'll be right back after this brief message.
Great.
Opportunity, what an opportunity. I'm going to use 2 4-letter words right now. Free gift. Free gift. Yes, you can have a copy of my best-selling book, The Joy of Living, How to Slay Stress and Be Happy, the ebook version for absolutely free. All you have to do is send an email to me, Barry, Barry, at barryshore.com, and in the heading, the subject line, just write free gift. It's as easy as that. This is a life-changing, life-enhancing opportunity. Barry at barryshore.com. You'll be glad you did. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Free gift. Do it now. Take the action. Make it happen right now. Best wishes. Bye. Imagine the kind of place you would want to shop for your favorite fur baby pet. HonestPets.co. Well, you found it. HonestPets.co. Not .com, .co. This is your go-to spot for the best, the cleanest pet treats that exist anywhere on the planet. All of the brands go through a rigorous review to make sure they meet the high standards of cleanliness, health benefits, and naturalness. This site was started by a husband and wife team, and it's veteran-owned, and that care about pets, especially dogs and cats, and coming soon, bird treats. These are very nice young people who really care about making a difference, because a portion of proceeds go to support veteran organizations with a focus on service dogs. This is the place where you want to go. You want to tell your friends this has the finest, yummiest, freshest, all-natural treats and stuff for your fur baby. So go there, honestpets.co. honestpets.co. Do it now.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Maybe you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. We found good in abundance. Our cup runneth over with good. Her name is Laura Rosen Cohen. She lives in Toronto, Canada, but she's a citizen of the world. And I mean that in the positive sense, not the lefty sense. She's a citizen of the world because she brings to us what's happening all over the world in people who are not accepting the fact that the individual is sacred. Whether it's in Iran, people rising up because of covering of hair for women, because of a state telling you what to do, COVID tyranny, the idea that you get in the mail or an email, the day of your death, come in and will kill you. And that is sponsored by a government that supposedly loves you, but it doesn't. So that's where we were. Now we're going to do a shift a little bit, and let's talk about life. And I really want to discuss things that touch the human soul. And one of them is this remarkable place called the State of Israel is a Jewish state because it most population are Jews, and it's been a Jewish state for thousands of years. It's in one new incarnation, a new republic, but it's thousands of years. It is the Jewish homeland. And at the same time, we're witnessing in the world the rise again of I don't even like calling it anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish, not just feelings, but overt actions that were almost unthinkable, certainly not talked about within just a decade ago. So I want to use the rest of our time just for that, because I want to reserve some time, Laura, for you speaking about what it is what it is to be a mother, a wife, 3 children, one of whom is other people call severely disabled, but we've just got very special needs. So we want to reserve time for that. But let's focus now on this phenomenon that is part and parcel, by the way, of the tyranny, I believe, of countries. And now something is happening that's bubbling out, the virulent disease that has been in the world for thousands of years. We call it hatred of Jews.
Right. So, yeah, anti-Semitism is known popularly as the world's oldest hatred. And it takes different forms, and that's kind of the so-called the beauty of anti-Semitism for anti-Semites is that it evolves and it can be whatever you want it to be. So if anybody thinks back to like just as an opposing vision, when the Jews were left Egypt and then God provided them manna from heaven and it could taste like anything that they wanted to. It was malleable, it could be whatever they wanted it to taste like. At the complete end of the scale, the complete opposite of that goodness to mold something to be whatever somebody wants it to be, we have this Jew hatred. So, in a time where if there's communism, then they'll call the Jews capitalists. If it's capitalistic time, they'll call the Jews communists. And, during the Spanish Inquisition, it was racial. You had to be forcibly converted. When there were crusaders, it was those kinds of programs. The point really is that anti-Semitism is here with us to stay. It's never actually going to go away. And all the efforts that various Jewish organizations make and fundraise on and try to fight anti-Semitism is, in my view, really futile. And I've had this argument with a lot of people over the years. In my view, it's legitimate and kosher and should be the fighting of anti-Semites, the actual people who are, expressing these views. That's fair game. That's why we have the state of Israel, so that we have the IDF and we can fight actual anti-Semites who threaten to annihilate the Jews wherever they are. But fighting anti-Semitism is pointless. It's a really ridiculous exercise. The Jews and everybody else has to just understand that anti-Semitism is going to take different forms. It's going to evolve. It's going to change. And really, it's so pathetic. Like, I have never found a joyful, happy anti-Semite, because it's a rotting of the human spirit and the soul and the brain. And you cannot be a happy, joyful person if your soul is rotting with Jew hatred. So let them go ahead and hate the Jews. I don't really care, because that makes me want to be more Jewish. It makes me want to learn more about my people, about the blessings of the Jewish people. And, I'm sure that other people in your audience would agree that if you've encountered somebody who's truly anti-Semitic, they're not happy with a lot of other things. It's not just the Jews that are living in their sandwiches that is the problem. They have a lot of other issues. And happy, content people don't lash out at other people. It's the same way on a microcosm. If you're in a workplace, if you have a good manager who's happy with their lot in life, a generally content person, they're not going to go out to make other people miserable. When you have people who are lashing out at other people, it's because they are truly unsatisfied with their own life. And it's a lot easier to blame somebody else than to say, you know what? I'm terrible. I made bad decisions. I'm like a crappy person. I've done horrible things to other people. I'm terrible. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to try to glom it on to whoever's around them. And that's a lesson that I've tried to also, instill in my kids, that when you see that person or that boss who's so miserable to other people, who really wants to make other people unhappy, look at their life. Like, it's absolutely pathetic. So Anti-Semites, go ahead. Just you go be you. And they're not going to go away. And let them bang their heads against the wall. It's not going to,
By
it's
the
not,
way, that's a wonderful thing. I love the image. Not that we bang their heads against the wall.
yeah, let
Because
them do it. Yeah.
so in my book, which thank God we have many tens of thousands of people around the world reading, called The Joy of Living, How to Slay Stress and Be Happy. One of the 11 strategies that is in the book is don't complain, don't blame,
Right.
because that is the rotting of the soul. Again, whether you're blaming the Jews, or you
Or
blame
anybody else.
anybody, or even you're blaming the Muslims, you're blaming the
It
Shiites, you're
doesn't
blaming the
matter.
Hindus.
That's
That
side.
is a rotting of the soul, as you said so well. So it's the anti-Semites, those unique beings that we can identify because they raise their hands, their ugly hands, and they identify themselves as hate-filled people. Now, interesting enough, the word hated, because Jews are hated, the same letters that spell hated is the word death. Hated, death. So that causes death in the human being. That's
Absolutely.
why anti-Semitism is so virulent, because there are some people that literally can't abide anything but hatred in life because they can't accept responsibility, as you said.
Right. And also, the thing that we've learned through history, there's several lessons of history for anybody who does read history, is that what starts with the Jews doesn't end with the Jews. It's going to be tested on the Jews, but then it's going to go other places and it's going to be exported elsewhere to other communities and to other minorities. So it's not just about the Jews, not ever. And the other thing that we've seen, and unfortunately, this is the heartbreaking thing about seeing rising anti-Semitism in America, of all places, is that generally speaking, societies that have had good relations with their Jewish communities, let them prosper, have them work in the fields that they were allowed to work in, those societies and cultures generally have done very well. The societies that put their Jewish communities respectively into ghettos, had the pogroms, um, eliminated their Jews, I say parenthetically, those societies are either no longer with us or in the toilet. They're in the toilet. And if you look at the most Jew-hating countries throughout the world, you're looking at societies that are dead inside, that have no soul. So America, on the other hand, because of its philosophy, the founding fathers, and for the precise reason, they were deeply spiritual people who recognized a brotherhood with the Jewish people, and America prospered not because of the Jews, but because they let the Jews prosper. And it goes back to, if I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. And even if you're not a person of faith, you can see that happening, and it's happened throughout history in many different cultures. And look at the Middle East. Look at the Middle East. There were thriving Jewish communities. Oh, this is something that a lot of people don't know. In most of the Arab world, Iraq, there still is a relatively sizable
Iraq, Syria, Iran,
Syria, Libya, all of North Africa, and those places are mostly crap hole countries and with no Jews. That doesn't mean that there still isn't anti-Semitism there. There is, unfortunately. It doesn't really have much to do with the
that's why they're
Jews.
still crappy countries.
And they're still going to be crappy. And the Jews have outlasted a lot of hate and a lot of other cultures. And here we are. You and I are having this conversation. We have close to 8 million people, Jews, in the state of Israel right now, thank God. We're not going anywhere. We're going to outlive and we're going to outlast. So that's a message to all the kook anti-Semites out there, that you can fester in your hatred. We're not going to care. We are going to outlive, outlast, and outlove all of these disgusting.
Let's go on that last point. We're going to outlove, you see, because the counterbalance to the anti-Semite is the joy, the happiness, the peace, and the love that is fostered in a Jewish home,
Absolutely.
Jewish family, a
Absolutely.
Jewish community, and this, thank God, now in the state of Israel, which, okay, it's a modern state. It has its all foibles and such, but
For
it's
sure.
prominently Jewish oriented,
Yes.
using Jewish traditions. And I want you to speak just for a couple of minutes, because I do want to get to your family situation, about the miraculous issue of what the Jewish state of Israel produces in terms of benefits to humanity in science and technology, in medicine. And it's phenomenal.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what's known in Yiddish. It's a Yiddish Kopf, like the Jewish brain. And it's a weird thing. And it's a creative brain, and it is a life-loving, inspiring brain. Most of all, life-loving. I mean, when Jews have a toast, we say l'chaim, to life. It's all about life. It's about making life good, about having goodness in this world. When the Jews say that we're the chosen people, it doesn't mean that we're chosen because it's not a matter of better than any other people. It's being chosen to show people in this world, not for the afterlife, the closest way to, the close how close we can become to God with goodness, with the commandments that we've been given to us. We're supposed to shine the light. And it doesn't mean that any one individual Jew is better, but the chosenness is chosen to show light and the goodness, to make this world a better place. This world, not the afterlife. I mean, that's where we differ from Christianity in a lot of ways, because a lot of Christianity, as far as I know, and obviously people in the comments or in the audience can correct me when I'm wrong, there's a lot of thought about what you do and your rewards in the afterlife. But Judaism is very much focused on right here, making the lives that are right here and right now better through these commandments and principles that we've received from God.
So on that note, we only have a few more minutes, but I do want people to feel your heart and your soul, you, your husband, and your children. You've been chosen to, thank God, give birth to a child with special needs. We only have a few more minutes, but I'd like you to speak to that and what that does in terms of shifting a personality because of building a family and such, and what that means for other people.
It's not an easy road. Once I read something that other special needs couples were struggling, and the wife was really upset. This is anecdotal. I can't remember where I read it. And she was having a why me kind of moment and a meltdown. And her husband just held her and said, well, why not us? Why not? Right? And so we don't know. And so if you have faith, then you have to believe that everything is within God's realm and God's plans. So I don't know why it's us or why it's my son, just like other people don't know why other things have happened to them. But I do think that being a special needs parent makes you acutely aware of human fragility and the sanctity of life, and also to be aware of how intolerant people can be towards other humans, often showing a lot of cruelty, not realizing how fragile their own abilities are. And, a lot of people make things worse for humans with disabilities. And my plea, my insistence is, I'm actually okay if you're indifferent to disabled people, or if you're not comfortable, that's okay too. I mean, sometimes we get stares and looks, and that's okay. That's like part and parcel of this experience. But at least don't make it worse. And, COVID really showed that a lot of people chose to make things worse, because you always have a choice. You always have a choice, and that's your free will from God. Free will doesn't mean that God has decided that you're going to have a chocolate bar this afternoon. Free will means that I have, as a moral human being, I always have a choice whether to do the right thing or to do the wrong thing. That's my free will. So with disabled people, and what we saw is that there were many, many people who very easily and sadistically and reprehensibly consistently chose to do the wrong thing to other humans and the most vulnerable humans among us. And that is outrageous. And that's what we have to watch out for. So when people say, how did the Holocaust ever happen? The Holocaust happened because people became insensitive to fellow human beings, and they didn't care when their civil rights were being degraded. So by the time it came to shipping them off to camps, they were completely anesthetized. mean, the German people started exterminating their own disabled children and lying to their own citizens before they perfected those techniques and the gases and the poisons on their own children, on their own flesh and blood. And then they moved on to the
just people, because people don't know this. So what Laura is revealing to you, and again, that's one of the reasons that I really asked her, she is doing revelation. What she's revealing to you is that the evil beings that were now in control of the apparatus of the state, then called Germany, started out by selecting those unwanted beings, those non-productive beings.
They were wanted by their families. They were taken by forcefully.
Right, yes, and they were put in places. Again, we would disabled, elderly, people that were just not available to help anymore, and they killed them. They perfected these ideas of gassing, of torturing, of medical experiments on their own people before, because they dehumanized people. That's the whole point. They no longer was the individual sacred. There wasn't the sanctity of life. These were not loving beings. These were hate-filled beings posing as humans. I call them two-legged beings posing as humans.
Well, they were human, and we can see the same patterns repeating. And I'm sure that everybody watching has some kind of an anecdote about a reprehensible behavior or a reprehensible policy that was put in place allegedly for public health or for safety that ruined families, broke up marriages. Families were ripped apart. People lost their livelihoods. I don't know every single person watching this, I'm sure, has a story of alienation or of a friendship that didn't last, or a marriage that didn't last, or a business that went under. And people watched and they didn't do much about it. And people behaved. What this COVID tyranny did was it gave people who were horrible people with a propensity for cruelty, it gave them license to do that in public and be called and considered virtuous. So everybody has to be very, very aware, and they're going to do it again. They will do it again because they got away with a lot and they were testing a lot. So, keep your eyes and your ears open, because we're seeing this go full circle again. So we're seeing now euthanasia. We're seeing people who want to murder Down syndrome babies in the womb and not give them a chance at life and call it a cure for Down syndrome. Sure, you just kill them. A cure for
I need to put you on pause, because again, you're giving things that people think of and say, well, wait a minute, Down syndrome child aborted. That now is called, in the 1984 world, cure. And by the way, I read a few years ago, there is a place, I won't say the name of it, where they were actually, the government of this particular country was happy because they had virtually no Down syndrome children in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And not because they weren't born there, because they were not allowed to be coming in the world. By the way, you must know this. Everybody in the world must know the following. In the state of Israel, that's not done.
Right. In Israel,
Down children. Okay.
Yes.
That's what it is.
So Israel, and in fact, I would say the Jewish people, have come a long way in terms of special needs acceptance and awareness. It used to be something, especially in religious Jewish communities, that was considered shameful, that would interfere with the marriage prospects for children in the Orthodox community. That it's completely different now. In the past, I would say 10 to 15 years, there's a greater acceptance. I think that there's more programs available for special needs that are much more enlightened. It's like the Yiddish cup. The Jewish head has finally clicked into special needs and disability. That's what we're seeing in Israel. It's a lot more progressive in those fields than in North America, in my view, although there are exceptions. A notable exception also is an organization that's run by Catholics that was started by Jean Vanier, a Canadian, called L'Arche, which is also a religious organization that treats disabled people with mercy and grace. Again, not for their own sake. It's like, that's also the philosophy underlying a lot of the current programs for special needs in Israel, is that it's for the giver. It's not for the receiver.
Okay, on this high note, we need, because you just touched on the very essence, the nerve of the human soul. It's for the giver.
Right.
This podcast is called The Joy of Living. The joy of living can be summed up in one word: giving.
Right.
You've been giving us enormous amounts today. Wonderful, Laura Rosen. I have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
By the way, I am tearing because you're touching deeply. 3 questions. Number 1, will you come back again?
With pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Number 2, you have only 80 seconds to answer this. What is your most fervent desire? 80 seconds.
Oh gosh, that's so hard. I just want my family and my loved ones to be healthy and happy. That's my biggest accomplishment on this earth is, thank God, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. I wish good health for everybody that I love. I wish a full recovery to the sick. I beyond that, everything else is gravy. May God protect, Israel, all the brave soldiers, keeping the Jewish people safe. Wishing that continues. And anything beyond that is superfluous.
Thank you. Okay, and number 3, may I give you a firm hug in front of 368,000 people?
Sure.
Let me tell you what HUG stands for.
Okay.
Heartfelt, unlimited giving.
Right.
Heartfelt, unlimited giving. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Definitely felt that through the internet.
Thank you. Remember, you're listening to The Joy of Living with your humble host, Barry Shore. You tuned in for one reason and one reason only. It's the best reason in the whole world, because you care the most in the entire world about you, and you becoming the best you possible, as Laura has to share with us. When you're the best possible you're a giver in the world. And the way to do that is using the 3 fundamentals of life. Number 1, life has purpose. Your life has purpose. When you live a purposeful, driven life. Number 2 happens, you go mad, you make a difference in the world. And number 3 is to unlock the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms. WWW. What a wonderful world. And when you do all this, you'll be happier, healthier, and wealthier. We guarantee it. Or your money back. Double your money back. And the way to do that is by smile. SMILE stands for seeing miracles in life every day. Or as my 8-year-old niece says, seeing miracles in everyday life. Create the kind of world you want to live in, causing rethinking, listen to Laura Rosen, causing rethinking, enabling all to excel. The way you do that is by understanding the 6 most important words you'll ever internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life. You just said it. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Use 4-letter words. But remember, the 4-letter words we use, because we live in the world of positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant. Love, life, hope, free, gift, grow, play, pray, swim, and tell the world to F you. Capital N, capital N. People ask, what is that all about? I say, I listen to Barry Shore, the Joy of Living podcast. You got to understand and know the guests he has on, because it's for your benefit. Use the 2 most powerful words in the English language 3 times a day from now and the rest of your life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and network kindness. To harmonize and network kindness. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Therefore, be kind always. And our blessing from Laura and Barry is, go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad, go make a difference. Laura, don't go away, okay?
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joy of Living podcast. Now that's another step towards your healthier, happier, and wealthier life. Never hesitate to do good in the world, no matter what the situation. Join us for another upbeat discussion next time at barryshore.com. And be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to the show to get more conversations like this. And remember to share it with your family and friends too. See you on the next episode.
Bye.